Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are continuing the, I guess now it's bi-weekly series of the all single class full party builds. And today we are doing the winners of the previous kind of poll, I guess, Barbarians. So basically comment the class that you want to see a party built around next, and the most upvoted comment or comments will be featured in the next video. So comment your favorite class and then upvote the one you want to see. And Barbarians won the last one by a landslide. Rogues were a not really close second, but Rogues were kind of the runner-up, so I suspect they will win soon. But Barbarians was the main one, and I have to say, this was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I thought making a full party of Barbarians was going to be pretty much just, yep, they all rage, and they all just kind of hit stuff over and over. But no, I was actually able to create what I think is one of my most powerful full party builds, as well as one of my most fun. This is such an incredibly fun team with a unique theming, both lore-wise and kind of gameplay-wise. Seriously, I think you guys are absolutely going to love this one, because it also centers around a mechanic that comes from an item, but you guys have been asking me to cover for a while as well, too. That is, if I just can find my UI, the Devil Foil Mask. Basically, the Devil Foil Mask on the surface doesn't look like much. However, it does come with a unique effect that's hidden from the tooltip. If multiple characters are nearby each other while wearing copies of this mask, it activates the Infernal Legion ability. Basically, when you are within 20 meters of another creature wearing this mask, strength increases by 1 and intelligence, wisdom, and charisma decrease by 1 per nearby mask. Now, this doesn't include your own mask, so the maximum amount of strength that you can get out of this is a +3, because there's only 4 masks in the game by default, and of course, normally you can only have 4 party members at a time. So that basically makes it so, again, so the maximum you can have is +3, like I already said, but it also means that your wisdom, intelligence, and charisma are all going to take a negative hit. And I thought, how can I turn that, other than just being a fun gameplay gimmick, into an actual narrative for these characters? And I think I've got it. I think this is a group of friends, and I'm not, nothing special, nothing extraneous, they're just friends. They're lifelong buddies who got together and made an adventuring party. They went out on the land, out in the sea, everywhere, going on many, many adventures together before ending up in Baldur's Gate. Somewhere along the line in their adventure, they may have stolen the wrong artifact, or pissed off the wrong deity, or something along this line, but they ended up being cursed, making their adventuring days numbered. Their physical strength all increased, sure, but over time their minds are slowly starting to degrade, and the more they fight, the quicker they degrade. As much as they don't want to stop their adventuring days and they want to continue exploring the world and seeing new things, eventually all that adventuring, all that combat is slowly going to wear down their mental states until they're nothing more than violent, mindless husks. And that's what the Devil Foil masks represent in this case. It's also why I've decided to hide the masks instead of having them all on, because it kind of creates a different vibe. Instead of just being these like mindless, warriors that just go around raging and killing, they are genuinely tragic figures who do actually have lives and personalities, and are just genuinely good people that are just afflicted by something that's slowly turning them into, well, monsters. And I think it's a really interesting thing that can actually be kind of played out through BG3 as well, because again, the whole thing is that your characters can be going slowly downhill. You could even lean into the tadpole powers if you want to, as kind of like some sort of like primal awakening as you kind of go further down the line, and eventually maybe your characters start off as good, but perhaps they make some genuinely evil decisions at the end. Who knows? Play this how you like. I think it's a really interesting, unique concept that can be explored quite far, as well as giving this kind of unique buff/debuff a genuine narrative like crutch in the story. That's probably not the right terminology for it, but you kind of get where I'm going with this. Now, obviously the downside of the Devil Foil masks is that obviously these mental stats are going to go right downhill, meaning that if you keep these on all the time, it's going to be very hard to do dialogue stuff. So I've got one of the characters here as kind of like a face of the party, which you'll probably be taking the mask on and off, unless you really, really wanted to roleplay this out and just have it so that The characters always have the masks on regardless, and you deliberately make life difficult for yourself with dialogue checks, but the masks can be taken on and off for when you actually need to do dialogue. But I do have a character in the party that is specifically designed for dialogue as well, out of all of these. And another great part about this build party as well is that I've actually managed to get most of the important equipment here. Since the Devil Foil masks are obtained in Act 1, I wanted to see how much of this kind of setup I could keep to like early game gear. And while there is some gear that I'll be showcasing in the final builds that is only available in Act 3, most of the equipment here is obtained at early Act 2 at the latest. So, and I still have early game options for the stuff that isn't. So really, this whole party can come online really, really soon. The other thing I will say about the full party as well is that you kind of have to manage your stats a bit weird, because obviously since I'm going to be taking feats with these builds, in fact each of these builds except for one has 2 feats because I don't have to put as much points into strength, the stats can be a little bit odd. You're basically going to have quite a few odd number stats, especially in strength. Pretty much all of these builds start with 17 strength because obviously we get a +3, and I'll go into that a bit more in depth, so just make sure you're starting with an odd number of strength no matter what you do. Because otherwise you're going to have basically a useless stat point there. Anyways, I think the combat footage we've been playing for now, but either way, let's get into the build. So, first up, we have what I'm calling the boss. I feel like these guys, they are a group of friends, but I guarantee they would have started out as almost like a small kind of like adventuring group, and this guy would have taken on the leader, so all the others are just like, yeah, sure, okay, boss, whatever you say, boss, and then the name just kind of stuck, so he's just called the boss. He is the medium armor kind of barbarian that we have here, and I've gone for like the kind of one-handed weapon and shield tactic, because this guy is the boss, he is the leader, and as such he wants to protect his friends. So for the feats I've gone for with this build, we have got Shield Master, which is going to make us a bit better at dexterity saving throws, as well as being able to use reactions to basically shield ourselves from like spell damage, anything that goes with a dex save. So we're able to basically gain like the rogue's evasion, but with shields, in addition to being able to wield a powerful shield that's going to give us a decent chunk of AC. I've also gone for, Sentinel, to be able to make it so that if anybody tries to attack our allies while we're next to them, we're going to be able to attack them, and we're also going to gain opportunity attack advantage as well. So overall, we're just going to be all about sticking close to our friends, and which we want to do because that's how the Devil Foil masks work. We need to be in close proximity, so being close to each other is going to come with a lot of benefits, as well as Shield Master is going to give us a +2 to dex saves, which means that we're going to be not only very good at tanking attacks with our regular AC and high HP pool, but also our dexterity saving throws are going to be really, really good, so spells aren't really going to be able to do much against us either. As well as this is for our first barbarian here, I've gone for Wildheart. Now for this specific build, any Wildheart bestial heart will work. The only ones I would stay away from are Eagle Barbarian, because, well, spoiler alert, one of our builds is an Eagle Barbarian, and second, maybe Elk. I can actually see an argument being made for Elk as like a stampeding thing to kind of rush around, but again, you kind of want to stick close together for the most part with this build, with the whole Sentinel thing, so in my opinion, Aspect of the Elk doesn't really work, nor would I really go for Aspect of the Wolf, maybe, because while that's good because it gives advantage on melee weapon attack rolls, and while that's good if you don't have a full party of barbarians, all of these guys have reckless attacks, so it's a bit meaningless. So while Elk is kind of meh, and I would stay away from Eagle and Wolf, the others are fine. So basically Tiger, Elk, or Bear are your choices. I went for Bear in my testing, because I quite like the Bear form, being able to give ourselves a little bit of healing, and obviously resistance to all damage types except Psychic, but that's entirely up to you. You can choose what you want to go for there. So yeah, this one's a bit more free-flowing, but the equipment here is also a bit free-flowing, but it does quite help the build quite a bit, so let's get into it. First up, the Vicious Battle Axe. I mean, I think of a barbarian, I think of battle axes. That's just me personally, so I've decided to go for a one-handed battle axe here, but any one-handed or versatile weapon will work for this build. This is just one of the best ones in the game. Unfortunately, even for battle axes, even the best option is kind of meh compared to other weapon classes. It's the only +2 battle axe in the game, I know, right? And whenever we land a critical hit with a weapon or an armed attack, it deals an additional 7 damage. This is an Act 3 axe. The Act 1 version you can pick up is the Witchbreaker, which gives you advantage on attack rolls against concentrating creatures, as well as the ability to use an attack that does a little bit of extra damage and can silence enemy casters. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of your early game option, but this is the option you probably want to upgrade to, especially since we are playing an orc and they get a little bit more out of their critical hits. So we definitely kind of want to use that here. It feels a bit on theme. Also, it's golden, which kind of matches the overall vibe. Like, honestly, the armor here is coloured in Feywild Green and Dundun. In fact, everything is, plus the golden shield and axe. It just looks so good. Honestly, fashion-wise, this is one of my best looking builds. Next up, the shield, Viconia's Walking Fortress. This is just a shield you want to go for towards the end game. Any shield up until this point will work. My personal recommendation that I have in the description is the glowing shield, because it gives a bit of temp HP when your HP starts to get a bit lower. But this one is amazing. Whenever you hit a foe, when a foe hits you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction, dealing 2 to 8 force damage and knock it prone unless they succeed a dex save. And you have advantage on saving throws against spells, and spell attack rolls against you have disadvantage. That is going to be huge for making up for our lower mental stats. As well as we also gain Warding Bond, which we can cast. Doesn't require concentration, so it will be maintained within range to give one of our allies a bit of a boost, as basically sharing our Bear Heart resistance with another character in the party, which I think is quite cool. And also Reflective Shell, not a spell, so we can cast it while raging. Once per short rest as a bonus action, we can make it so that any projectiles cast at us are reflected back. This is basically the kind of tank of the build, kind of tank of the party, I would say. Even though all of these guys can take hits extremely well, this guy probably takes them exceptionally well. Let's get into the rest of the equipment. Obviously, the Devil Form Mask, don't need to go over that. We also have the Armour of the Agility. This is just kind of the best medium armor in the game. It adds our full dexterity modifier to our armor class, and additionally, we do not impose disadvantage on stealth ability checks, and it gives us yet another boost to our saving throws. So even with our low base stats, our saving throws are still going to be decent, at least with this character. But of course, early game option for medium armor, cannot recommend the Adamantine Scale Mail enough. All incoming damage is reduced by 1. When a melee attack hits you, the attacker is sent reeling, which reduces their chance to hit, and attacks can't land critical hits against you. Any early game medium armor will work, but I think the Adamantine Scale Mail is definitely one to aim for. Next up, the Gloves of Missile Snaring. You can intercept missiles from ranged weapon attacks, reducing their damage by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier. So yeah, basically this is just going to make us very, very effective at tanking all different types of damage. Unfortunately, this build is a bit reaction heavy. You're definitely going to want to make sure that you have all of your reactions set to ask, so that you can pick and choose what you want to use in any given moment, but you're basically going to have a reaction attack or reaction defensive option for every situation. You may think it's a bit overkill, so feel free to switch and swap pieces of equipment between these builds, because overall they'll be effective on any of them, but I quite like this setup here. And finally, the Acrobat Shoes. This is going to give us advantage on dexterity saving throws, and if you'll remember, Shield Master relies on dexterity saving throws, so getting the boost from Shield Master as well as advantage on those checks, meaning this basically means that we're going to be taking no damage from spells like Fireball pretty much all the time, which is actually insanely great for tanking, so I quite like this here as well. I will quickly go over the accessories as well. We have the Amulet of the Harpers, which gives us advantage on wisdom saves, one of the most important saves in the game, even though our wisdom is 7 when everything's said and done. This is still better than nothing. It also gives us a usage of Shield once per long rest. Shield is a reaction-based spell, and for some reason in this game, reaction-based spells can be cast while raging, so we can actually use Shield while in our rage, so we might as well do so. I've also got the Caustic Band, total throwaway slot, put whatever you like in here, but this gives us a little bit of extra damage. Helps with our kind of lower tier weapon. And finally, the Ring of Mind Shielding. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed. Again, we're kind of the leader of the party. We're the one that leads the charge in battle. If we get charmed, the whole group's a bit screwed. So I decided to kind of throw this on here. It's a bit of a lore thing, a bit of a kind of like a strength of willpower type deal, but it's a throwaway slot, put whatever you like. And finally, I've also got a ranged weapon here, the Titan String Bow. We have decent dexterity and great strength. Might as well take advantage of it, because this weapon adds additional damage equal to our strength modifier, meaning that this thing is going to be quite strong. And even though we have a lower base dexterity, we have reckless attack to make sure our bow attacks hit, so we're effective at melee and at range. As for your starting stats, it's a pretty standard stat spread, I would say. Your only thing is you're going to want a 17 in strength to get the final stat total that I have here, plus a ASI into strength, putting 2 points into it to get a total of 22, so 19 plus 3. Dexterity starts at 16, Constitution starts at 14, Int and Charisma are at the base of 8, and Wisdom started off as a 10. As you can kind of see, we have all the stats lined up here. But yeah, that is the first build, and honestly, I really like this one. In my testing, when I had all of the group bundled up together, this guy was just reducing damage, attacking on reaction. He had everything. We were being shot at, he would block it and take no damage. This guy had the most survivability out of anyone in the party and was also really supportive to his allies. And again, the fashion is so on point. This is one of my favorite builds I've ever made. Just straight up. As a straight barbarian, this one's awesome. Next up, the one that I refer to as the Missile. And you know what? I've got a party full of barbarians here. We've got a gnome. We're gonna throw the gnome. That's why he's called the Missile. Because not only can we throw this guy, he's also extremely quick and nimble. Even if he's getting thrown away from his party members, he can get back to them in pretty much an instant. This guy has enough movement speed at the end of the day to cross the entire battlefield. I'm not even kidding. I even went out of my way to show it off like towards the end of the combat footage, which I'll show at the end of the video, where you'll just see this guy absolutely zoom in. In fact, all of these guys can move pretty quick, but this guy in particular is fast. That is because we are rocking the Athlete feat with a +1 in Dexterity, and I'll get to the starting stats in a minute, as well as Mobile. We have amazing jump distance and amazing movement speed because we are playing a Wildheart Eagle Barbarian, as I said. So the whole point of this guy is he's either going to get thrown across the battlefield at enemies or into an advantageous position, or he's going to run around and jump to a high point and then jump down and strike with Diving Strike from the Eagle Barbarian. So this is going to deal a bunch of damage and can knock enemies prone. It's so funny. Again, you will have seen it in the combat footage. Just an amazing ability. Unfortunately, we can't use this like from being thrown. It's not like we can like trigger this as a reaction if we get thrown at an enemy, which is kind of sad, but hey, I thought it's still a really fun thing that like maybe if he's not being thrown at an enemy, he can be thrown up to a high point and then jump down on his turn. It's such a fun concept, but this guy has more than enough maneuverability on his own. Starting stats though, I will say, because they are a bit weird. We started off with 17 strength, and we did not touch it again, giving us a total of 20. We also started off with 15 dexterity, because what I ended up doing was is I used Athlete to bump up our dexterity to a 16, and then we got a +2 from our armor, and then a +2 from an ability score improvement later, giving us 20 dexterity. Because not only is this guy very quick and nimble and jumping all over the place and smacking down with his big hammer, he is also the infiltrator of the party. He's the closest thing we've got to a rogue, and I'll get to more about that in a minute. But yeah, that's kind of the starting stats that you want to go for. Constitution at base and a little bit more wisdom, but honestly, not a huge deal there. So anyways, let's get into the equipment. First up, my hammer of choice is the Foe Breaker, because it ignores bludgeoning resistance and comes with tenacity, meaning that even if we miss an attack, we're still going to do a little bit of damage anyway, but ignoring resistance is huge for being able to do big damage with our diving strikes. But in the early game, of course, we have the hammer halved. Whenever the wearer jumps, they deal 1d4 of thunder damage in a 3-meter radius upon landing, and still gets the tenacity feat. So that's just an on-theme weapon for the build, but this one will be a bit of an upgrade in the long run. And if you really want that extra bit of thunder damage, pick up the Drakethroat Glaive and buff it. So yeah, there you go. As for the body armor here, of course I've gone with the Graceful Cloth, which is going to increase our dexterity score by 2, giving us a nice even 20, even with 2 feats, as well as it's going to give us a +1 bonus to dex saves and increase our jump distance even further. We've also got the Braces of Defense, giving us a +2 to our armor class, so long as we are not wearing armor or holding a shield. Another great Act 1 option, giving us a nice solid 20 AC. We've also got the Bone Spike Boots, which are going to give us a +1 bonus to armor class and saving throws, so long as we are not wearing armor or holding a shield, and also increases our jump distance even more, as well as giving us the unique class action Brutal Leap, which is going to allow us to leap at a target and possibly knock it prone. So we can either use our regular jump to attack or our diving strike as well. Basically, you're probably going to be using this to jump up to somewhere and then jump back down with the diving strike, but it gives you a bit more freedom in how you're able to use your action and your bonus action if you can knock enemies prone either way. And again, a prone enemy is great for the whole party, so it's really great for support. But of course, this is an Act 3 option, so the early game option for you is the Boots of Speed, giving you the ability to dash as a bonus action. Mobile will also give you the ability to dash as a bonus action, I believe, but the boots of speed will allow you to do that before you get mobile, since that's 2 or 3 feats deep, so it will help you kind of feel that flavour of the build regardless. I've also got the Corvid token here, giving us Featherfall permanently. This is an Act 3 option. As you kind of level up this build, you could choose the aspect of the beast aspect of the chimpanzee, which would give you resistance to falling damage, but this will completely nullify it. So if you do take that earlier on, you probably want to respec a bit later. I did actually take the aspect of the beast stallion on this one, since we're dashing so much, and that'll give us temporary HP equal to twice our barbarian level when we dash. So that was a good idea. And there's also aspect of the wolf, as you can see down here, which is going to allow our allies to add our dexterity modifier to their stealth checks, because again, this guy is a bit of a stealthy dude, but he's going to help the whole party stealth. For this build, I forgot to mention for the boss, he has aspect of the elk aura, like I said, to give everyone a bit more movement speed, and I believe he also has aspect of the bear for more carrying capacity, but that can be whatever you like. Next up, we also have the Smuggler's Ring. Our charisma is already going to be low, so we don't really care about taking a -1 to charisma to get a +2 to stealth and sleight of hand. This guy also has the Urchin background, so he has a stealth and sleight of hand as skill proficiencies anyway, so that's fine. We also have the Ring of Shadows, allowing us to cast Pass Without Trace to give a +10 bonus to all stealth checks for the whole party, until we start raging, as this is concentration. Basically, if we need to stealth into a place, this guy's going to get the whole party in, absolutely no problem. Once I saw that kind of aspect of the beast for the wolf, I had to try and make this guy a bit of a stealth build. I could totally imagine these guys having to infiltrate the bank in Act 3 or something, and so he gets thrown in through the window, and then it's and then he's just all clear, and then the rest of them kind of climb in. He lets a rope down. You know, it's fun interactions like that. Honestly, I should be making builds for tabletop, because Baldur's Gate 3 does not give as much freedom as tabletop, and that's fine, but damn, imagine this party in tabletop. It would be so fun. Anyways, that is the missile. Again, known to be thrown or to be jumping off of things, doing massive heavy slams with his hammer. Really, really fun build. Again, I use a hammer because of the hammer haft, but really you can use any weapon with this guy, and it won't really matter. You can kind of do whatever you like. These builds are very flexible, but honestly, I just love the idea of him just having this hammer, especially since we kind of have something, I don't know, we have the overhead swing and the diving strike. I mean, he's used, it's using an axe in the picture, but I just think of a hammer. To me, it's more funny. But yeah, that is this kind of build. I do go with camp clothing because, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the way this outfit looks, so I went with camp clothing, and I colored it in sage green for that green and blue look. Next up, the Brute. This is our Berserker Barbarian, who is the only build here that doesn't have 2 feats. I decided to put 2 ability score increases into, into strength, to give us a total of 24 strength. This guy is the strongest out of all of them. He is going to be able to throw things, probably the gnome, very, very far. So I kind of decided to focus on both using the 2-handed warhammer that we have here, as well as making a sort of throwing build. As for the singular feat that I went for, I did go for Great Weapon Master. But you can also go with Tavern Brawler if you want to focus on more of the throwing aspect. So it's kind of a pick and choose. Either go for Great Weapon Master or Tavern Brawler. Tavern Brawler, though, if you're going to throw the gnome, will damage the gnome quite a lot when you throw them, or the missile, I should say, so be a bit careful with that, because it doesn't count as falling damage, it counts as extra damage, so you're not going to be immune to it with Featherfall. So be a bit careful there. I personally preferred Great Weapon Master in my testing. The throwing hammer aspect is a bit more if enemies happen to be at range, you still have a powerful option against them. Otherwise, you are going to probably want to stay in close proximity with this build. Because obviously with Berserker, we do have access to the bonus action Throw and Frenzied Strike, which means that we do have a lot of attacks we can do in a turn. We're also going to get Intimidating Presence, allow us to inflict targets with fear, which is quite nice. I went for a gold dwarf here to just give us an absolute butt ton of HP, so this guy can get in there getting hit regardless of the fact that he has much lower AC than normal. He's just going to be tanking hits left, right, and center regardless, and besides, our allies will be able to pull the heat off of him quite a bit. But yeah, as for the rest, I mean, it's all fairly standard Barbarian stuff. If you know Barbarian, you know what you're getting here, so let's just get into the equipment. First up, our final weapon of the build will be the Dwarven Thrower. This weapon will return to its owner when thrown. It has the thrown property, meaning that it will deal extra damage, and also a dwarf throwing this warhammer deals an additional 1d8 bludgeoning damage. If the target is large, huge, or gargantuan, it deals an additional 2d16 bludgeoning damage. It's a +2 weapon by default. Very, very fun weapon, gives us a powerful ranged option that we can use either with our action or our bonus action, so we can, and since throwing triggers extra attack, we can actually throw up to 3 times per turn if you choose, but again, I would probably go bang, smack, smack, and then throw as a bonus action most likely. Because while Frenzied Strike does inflict a penalty that reduces your chance to hit with each attack, the Enraged Throw does not, so I can see you going smack smack with your main action and then throw with your bonus action. That's kind of how I see this build working out in the main run, mainly at least. But let's get into the rest of the equipment. First up, the Enraging Heart Garb. You knew it was going to be on one of these builds. It gives us a +2 to Constitution, giving us a bit more AC and a bit more HP, as well as allowing us to generate Wrath while raging. Wrath is a really good status effect because it gives a +1 bonus to damage with melee weapons for every turn of the condition remaining, meaning that this, with Great Weapon Master, is going to make us even more powerful. Unfortunately, this part is bugged at the moment. It doesn't actually give the Wrath, but when the patch in September comes out, this should get fixed. But for now, the +2 to Constitution is more than enough. Next up, the Gloves of Uninhibited Kashigo. This is going to give our throw attacks an additional 1d4 damage. I did also have the Gloves of Power as part of my testing in this build, and I actually do quite like this too, but this can go on any of the builds, not just this one. This will give, as long as you have the Brand of the Absolute, any attack with a weapon attack can possibly inflict Bane on the target, so that is actually quite nice. Either or is good. If you want to focus more on throwing damage, go with the Gloves of Uninhibited Kashigo, but if you want to inflict a little debuff with your many attacks, go for the Gloves of Power, which is a great kind of team power anyway. And finally, the Line Breaker Boots, another way of generating Wrath. Once per turn when you dash, you gain Wrath for 2 turns. Now obviously we can only dash with our main action, but because we have options for attacking with our bonus action, either in melee or at range, we're not too worried about dashing with our action and still getting an attack off. Basically, use a couple of turns to build up stacks of Wrath to get up to a +7 to your melee damage, and then just start attacking normally and kind of try and manage this buff as best you can. You will think it's quite powerful in the long run, and I kind of like the idea of this guy getting angrier and angrier as time went on, until eventually he just explodes and does massive damage. I think it's quite fun, and I quite like this build. Fairly simple, but overall I do really like the way it works. Next up for the accessories, the Fey Semblance Amulet. This is going to give us advantage on Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saves. Really, this can go on anyone. This is just a decent Act 3 option if you really are worried about those saving throws from your mental stats. With them being as low as they are, unfortunately, even advantage is not going to help that much, but hey, it could help. But really, anything can go in the slot. I just wanted to point out this piece of equipment. Next up, the Ring of Flinging, an additional 1d4 bonus to our throw damage, and the Killer's Sweetheart. With Great Weapon Master, Killer's Sweetheart is an amazing ability, a guaranteed critical hit with all of that damage once per long rest. Basically, you would use this on a boss to absolutely destroy them. And then, yeah, everything here is coloured in the ocean dye, just to kind of give that brownish with a bit of blue in there. But yeah, really happy with this build. Again, just overall quite strong and a fun time all around. And finally, probably the most unique build out of the lot, the Arcanist, our wild magic barbarian. Because I thought to myself, how much magic can I actually get on a barbarian? Turns out, more than you would expect. Don't get me wrong, this guy is still focused on being a flat-out attacker, but between the wild magic surges giving us a bunch of interesting magical effects that can buff us, our allies, or our damage, or even just like summon little things to attack, I thought I wanted to get as many different magical effects as I could on this build. This build has a 22 in strength, meaning that it has about a 19, so I put 1 ability score improvement in here, and I've also gone for the feats, and I've picked some interesting ones here. Let's see if I can find them. They're not listed here, so I'll read. Oh yeah, I've got Mage Slayer, so it takes one to know one. This guy is going to be specializing in taking down magic casters, being able to use their reaction to make an attack against an enemy that casts a spell within melee range, and also they're going to be able to have advantage on. They'll have the enemy will have disadvantage on their concentration checks against attacks from us. So we're going to be great at taking down spellcasters. As well as I also picked up Ritual Caster to give us 2 ritual spells as they don't require spell slots. This means that we'll be able to pick up 2 ritual spells. I've chosen Longstrider to give everyone even more movement speed, and Enhanced Leap to make it so we're all able to jump around the battlefield like crazy. This is going to be amazing for map traversal. This is going to be great for like supporting the whole party in and out of combat, so I wanted to pick it up here. But let's get into the equipment, because I do believe it gets quite fun here as well. Our kind of main weapon is going to be the Staff of the Ram. Again, we fancy ourselves a bit of a spellcaster, so I wanted to kind of use a quarterstaff, but this one is mainly going to be used for hitting people. The Staff of the Ram comes with an additional 1d6 of force damage, which is lovely, and once per turn the blow can possibly knock a foe back and stun them. Stunning makes it so they cannot move at all. They cannot take actions, bonus actions, or reactions, which is extremely powerful. Unfortunately, though, this has no effect on dragons or huge creatures. But overall, it's just a really very powerful bopping stick. That's what it's meant for. It's a bopping stick. You bop someone on the head for an extra bit of force damage plus of all of our barbarian shenanigans. But a good early game option would be the Cacophony, which comes with an extra 1d4 of thunder damage and the ability to cast Thunderous Smite, which can be quite fun. Ignore that extra force damage that's coming from our other staff. Overall, quite a fun little bit kind of weapon there. I really like the Staff of the Ram, and I don't get to show it off nearly enough. Should make a monk build around it, really. The Force Monk. Could be fun. Next up, the Elegant Studded Leather, giving us a +2 bonus to our initiative rolls, advantage on stealth checks, and the ability to cast Shield once per short rest. Again, reminder, Shield can be cast during rage, so this is going to work even if we're raging or not, so we're going to pretty much constantly have access to the Shield spell, which is great. I did put the Gloves of Dexterity on this build to give us a flat 18 in Dex, so that I could put some more points into our soft stats. Again, this is going to be kind of our character that is the face of the party outside of combat, because you can see I've removed the mask, and now that we have pretty decent scores in Charisma and Wisdom, not the best, but decent, so this would probably be the guy you're going to want to put into Dialogue, and I have spec'd into that a bit more as we go, but feel free to play around with the stats a bit and swap that out if you like. Next up, Mistress Grace. This is going to give everyone Featherfall as well. You can cast it at will as a bonus action for no cost whatsoever, so you have access to Enhanced Sleep, Longstrider, and Featherfall. 3 great utility spells, and again, these boots are obtained right away in Act 1, so you'll be able to gain access to all of this stuff pretty damn soon. This is going to be great for the whole party, especially if you don't have the Corvid token for the missile yet, but obviously once you get the Corvid token and you don't really care about Featherfall and the rest of the party, you might want to swap these out for something else. In fact, maybe even the Disintegrating Nightwalkers might be better for you. Just be aware that obviously you won't be able to cast that Misty Step while raging, but I did want to point this out because it felt like a fun party-wide buff. For the amulet, I've gone with the Silver Pendant to give us guidance, so we even have guidance with this build, another little magic spell that's really going to help us out. I will also point out that I did play as a Mephistopheles Tiefling to get access to Mage Hand as well, because again, it's another kind of spell. I just wanted a lot of little fun staple magic caster things on this build, and I managed to get quite a lot, so I was quite happy with that. And guidance is always obviously going to be a really good cantrip to have in the party as well. It's going to help us in dialogue, making up a little bit for our crap mental stats. Next up, the Ring of Blink. Blink is another spell that works amazingly with Rage. If you saw my Wild Magic Barbarian Sorcerer video, you'll know what I'm talking about. Basically, Blink is going to allow us to blink into the ethereal plane, making it so that we cannot be touched. But it's not a concentration spell, so it won't be ended by our Rage and will work within Rage, basically making us super tanky and blinking all over the place, which feels great for Wild Magic, so I wanted to include it here. And also, I've got this Shifting Corpus Ring. This is just here to give us a couple of more spells. We can't use these while raging, but the invisibility spell would actually be great for our little stealth guy there, the missile, so you could even make him invisible and allow him to be even better at infiltrating while he scouts ahead. Also, you can cast these and then rage maybe a bit later if you wanted to keep up these abilities, but I just wanted to get a bit more magic here. Feel free to change this out for whatever you like. And this whole outfit is dyed in the black and jade green dye, and an early game option for the armor is the Padded Armor +2, which is just a generic, very good looking piece of early game armor, but any armor will work, as long as it's not heavy. And I mean, yeah, that's the party. Those are the builds. And I have to say, I am extremely happy with how this turned out. Like, it may not seem that complex as I just sit here and talk about the builds, but in practice, it is extremely fun to play with these characters. They all synergize with each other really, really nicely. The overall theming is quite unique. I love the idea of these guys being, like, cursed to eventually lose their minds, but they're still going to go on one last adventure before that happens. And, like, I don't know, just the way the party synergizes, being able to throw the gnome and then have the gnome be able to use that ability to be able to dive down and attack. The leader having the ability to protect allies or deal massive damage and just be an amazing tank. Actually having a wild magic barbarian who can cast various helpful spells that can help out the whole party as well as themselves. And then just having the brute, which is just the big damage guy who just does everything. He's the classic barbarian. Like, this all works so well. The team is fun, the theme is fun, the playstyle is awesome. This is one of my favorite full party builds that I've ever done, and I really, really hope you guys liked this video. I always have a bit of trouble with these full party builds because I usually run out of steam like halfway through them. I'm like, oh, I really don't know how to make the last two characters feel cool. But barbarians are so customizable in ways that you don't expect, especially in BG3, that this was just so fun. I love the background, I love the story to them, I love the way they play. I'm just very, very happy with this build. Anyways, I mean, the combat footage is pretty long, but I've kind of run out of things to talk about. So, what exactly do I do here so that the combat footage can keep playing? I mean, if you guys didn't see the update video, which a lot of you didn't, there is a charity event coming up in August, which I'm going to be a part of to kind of help support FMA UK. It's being run by my friend Red, and it's going to be a fun time. I'm going to be DMing a BG3 one-shot session from D&D using the official character sheets provided by Larian, and also maybe some other things if some donation goals are met. So keep an eye out for that. Information will be posted once I have a bit more of it. Anything else to talk about? I mean, we're extremely close to 10k now. I think we're at what, 9,560? I think. Let me just double check my phone. I'm really just trying to let this combat footage play out, guys. No, wait, what? 9,664. Oh god, we're gonna be at 10k very, very soon. I still don't know what to do yet. I have an idea. I still don't know really what to do. Oh, that's scary. That's scary that we're actually going to hit that goal probably next month. That's insane. You know what? I'm going to leave the video here. You've seen enough. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.